Rahman. Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وقدوتنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Welcome to beginning classical Arabic. Let's pick up right where we left off, inshallah ta'ala. So we had been going through this lesson. We tackled the rather long conversation between Hamid and Muhammad. We talked a lot about pronouns, especially possessive pronouns, and watched how they work and how they can be added to different things and how they reflect the one that is possessing something, right? So we had this exercise that we had done last class, ضع في الفراغ فيما يلي الضمير. We had either who or ha. So we had to distinguish between, okay, who's the one that's possessing? Okay, هذه, for example, the first one, هذه البنت طالبة طالبة اسمها زينب. So we had to distinguish, this is the ism, right, the name, and whose name is it? It is her name. And so because it's her name, the proper possessive pronoun was ha. And so on and so forth. We went over that and everybody did very well. And these are some, I'll let these be kind of like take-home assignments, right? These that are kind of asking you to generate some questions. Maybe we can just do 5 total. Maybe we can do this as kind of like a class and we'll see how it goes. So هاتي خمسة أسئلة وأجوبة كالمثال الآتي. So they want you to generate 5 questions and answers according to the following examples. So we see the example of a question, عندك قلم? That's the question. Do you have a pen on you? Or do you have a pen? We broke this down last class. I'll just break it down again here. So we have the alif, or better said, the hamzatul istifham. That makes a question. We have the inda, which is a preposition that means with, but we use it for possession, right? And then we have the possessive pronoun ka for masculine with a fatha. عندك. And then qalamun. So do you have a pen on you, right, is essentially what this is asking. And the response is na'am عندي qalamun. So we see we still have inda as the preposition. However, we've changed it. We've changed the possessive pronoun attached to it to reflect who we're talking about. So yes, I have with me a pen. عندي qalamun. And so they want us to try to generate 5 question-answer responses. And I think for the sake of time, let's just run through it once with the folks in the class, the participants, and we'll see what we can come up with. Notice that they want the answers to be in the affirmative. So we have na'am indi qalamun. So don't answer with a negative. That's going to be the next example. They have the next exercise, عندك قلم لا ما عندي قلم. And we'll go over about how to negate jumla ismiya when we get there. So for the first one, let's start with the Sayyids. Okay, so let's have Dr. Muhsin, if you could generate a question upon this pattern, and if Dr. Saira, if you could generate an answer to that question.
It's only me today.
Okay, no problem. So let's pair you up with Sister Sahar. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there. So it can be عندك like كتاب.
Kitabun, good. عندك كتاب, very good. And so Saira, go ahead and answer that question.
نعم عندك كتاب.
Excellent, except one thing. Okay, I'm going to translate what you two just said. So Sahar asked, do you have a book? Yeah. Very good. And Saira answered, yes, you have a book.
Oh, yeah, I have.
So give it another shot and try to change the possessive pronoun to reflect the correct meaning.
Indi.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Exactly. So it takes a little bit of rearranging, right? If the question comes at you, do you, okay, عندك, then the response can't be عندك. The response has to be نعم عندي, because you were being asked about you. And this is all just getting used to it, because in English, we don't think twice about it, right? Do you have a pen? I have a pen. You, I, you, I. We do it so quickly and so automatically, it doesn't even register, right? So it just is developing our ear and our awareness to register when someone's saying, I'm the ka, okay, the ka is addressing you. And now I have to speak about myself. And so I'm going to have to, the output is going to have to be E. Very good. Let's have another pair. Is brother Muhammad Tariq there?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, could you generate a question? We'll have Muhammad respond.
I'm here too. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I know you're here, Adam. I just want to pair the gentleman with
Yeah.
see how we can get who does the
عندك سيارة.
good, mashallah. And so Muhammad Mu'tasim, what would be the response?
نعم عندي سيارة.
Fantastic. Excellent. See how they did it? Not so hard. Do you have a car? Yes, I have a car. Now let's take Sister Masarrat and Sister Erum.
عندك مفتاح.
Cycle.
نعم عندي مفتاح.
Fantastic. Very, very good. So Sister Masarrat did something very important there that I will point out. I wasn't holding anyone accountable to it because we're just still in the beginning. So she differentiated between عندك and عندكِ. Okay, so ki is the possessive pronoun for you, feminine. So Sister Masarrat was being very specific. She was registering the fact that she was speaking to a female, and so she asked her عندكِ قلم, which is the most correct thing. Before we were kind of only using the masculine, and I was kind of letting it slide, whether regardless of what your gender was, just so we could get used to talking about me, talking about you, talking about him, talking about her. But yes, the correct, it would be in this scenario, عندك مفتاح, and the response, نعم عندي مفتاح. Notice how when we're talking about ourselves, the pronoun doesn't change. There's no masculine mine or no and feminine mine. It's only for you, or I should say yours, or his, or hers, etc. Very good. And finally, Saman, and I'll do it with you since we have an odd number of people. So go ahead and come up with a question.
Okay. عندك كرسي?
Good. Hey, yeah, if we're in a classroom and there's not enough chairs to go around, that's a good question. So I would say نعم عندي كرسي, and she used عندك because I'm a man, and that was completely correct. Very good. Excellent. Okay, next example, we're going to be working with the negative. So I'll refresh our memories of just what we were reviewing the other day. In all languages, we have basically three variations. We have affirmative sentences, and we have questions, and we have negative sentences, okay? So in English, I had given the example of I have a ball, okay? A question would be, do I have a ball? Question mark, question mark. And the negation of that would be I do not have a ball. Easy enough, right? Well, Arabic is even easier because if we notice here, what we have is the order of the words, which is technically called syntax, is not consistent. In the affirmative, it's I have, okay? To make a question, I have to put something before I. Do I have? Okay. And to make a negative, I actually have to insert do not in between these two things, which I had in the very first example, I have. So Arabic is a little bit easier than that. We have, let's just take indi qalam, because that was the very first example. We're making an affirmative statement. Indi qalamun. That is the affirmative statement. If I want to make a question, I simply add the hamza of istifham, the question hamza, before the phrase. Same exact phrase. Indi qalam. And excuse the fact that we wouldn't usually be asking questions to ourselves, but just for the sake of this example, we are. You know, sometimes we all have parent brain, right? Indi qalamun, and that is a question. And then finally, to negate it, we have ma. So that's what we're learning here. The negation of a jumla ismiya is ma. Ma indi qalam. So we can see that this is a little bit easier than English, because in English, we have to flip around word order. In Arabic, we don't have to flip around word order at all. We keep the same exact sentence, indi qalam, indi qalam, indi qalam. And all we do is we add something to the beginning. For a question, we add the hamza. For negation, we add ma. So here we have this example, عندك قلم, or عندك قلم, depending on who is speaking. And the first thing is to respond directly to the yes or no portion of the question, this time with la. La means no. But then we're good straight A students, and we're going to answer in complete sentences. We're not going to act like teenagers. And so we're going to say, I do not have a pen. Ma indi qalam. Right? We have the negative particle right here, the negative particle, and then the rest of the sentence is exactly what we've been doing this entire time. Good. So let's do the same thing. We're going to generate questions on this pattern. This time, let's try to be mindful of who we're speaking to, whether we're speaking to a man, and so we'll have indaka, or whether we're speaking to a woman, and so we'll have indaki. We'll generate questions and we'll respond to them, but this time negating, answering with no, and in a full, complete sentence. And don't worry about if we're using the same objects that we used in the last round. That's not the point of this exercise. It's not to flex your vocab. It's just to work on negating things. So let's go this time. We'll reverse the order a little bit. Let's go with Sister Musarrat and Sister Adam.
Go
Is
ahead.
it first? Okay,
Mhm.
go ahead.
عندك بيت?
لا ما عندي بيت.
Very good. So they correctly changed the kaf for ki because they're speaking females amongst themselves. And then they use bait, which is a house. And listen to the negation. First, we answer the question, la. And then we negate possession by saying, ma indi baytun. Very good. Brother Muhammad Tariq and Brother Muhammad Mu'tasim, can you do the next one? Your turn.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, let me ask. عندك منديل?
لا ما عندي منديل.
Fantastic. Excellent work. Let's go with, what do we have here? Yes, Sister Semen and Sister Syra.
عندك دراجة؟
لا ما عندي دراجة.
Very good. MashaAllah. Fantastic. So easy enough, right? Anyone have any questions about that?
No.
Good. They're taking it nice and slow with us, and this is good because we're back from our long extended vacation. So now we have a nice diagram here where we're going to tease out all of the possessive pronouns that we've learned so far. Okay, so we have the first person possessive pronoun, meaning beiti, that's the ya, my house. Okay, so our first one is ya, and we use ya for something that is mine, my house, my pen, my car. Then we have the ka, and we discussed here that it can either be ka with a fatha or ki with a kasra, depending on gender, and that is for second person, singular, you, your house, your car. And then we have two possessive pronouns for the third person, one masculine, hu, baytuhu, his, qalamuhu, his pen, darajatuhu, his bicycle, etc. And ha, her, for feminine third person singular, baytuha, qalamuha, kitabuha, miftahuha, and so on and so forth. And these are what we've learned so far. Just to reiterate a couple points, this is made up of two parts, right? So we have the noun, the base noun, plus the possessive pronoun. You might be wondering, what happened to this baytun? Well, we dropped it. We lost it along the way. Why? Because bait is mudaf ilay, with whatever is the possessive pronoun coming after it. It's a possessive relationship. Okay, that's one of the first things people usually notice. The second thing that people usually notice, why don't I have to say ana beiti? And we talked about this, I think, last class. Why don't I say, doesn't that mean my house? And no, because what's happening here is you're actually translating the sentence order or the word order of English. Because in English we say my house. The word my comes first. Well, in Arabic we say bayti, which if we were to translate it exactly would literally be house my, which is why you might feel like something's missing for a little bit until you train yourself to recognize that bayti is the same as my house. If you were to introduce ana, that would not be correct because ana is talking about I go do this, I go do that, etc., etc. We're not really talking about us. We're talking about something that belongs to us. My house, my car, my pen, etc. Good. Anyone have any questions on anything this far? Excellent. You can send something in the chat or just unmute yourself if you've got any doubts or questions. Okay, this is a really, really useful exercise. أضف الأسماء الآتية إلى المتكلم والمخاطب والغائب والغائبة كما هو موضح في المثال. Okay, there's going to come a very sweet and celebratory day when you're able to understand the instructions. But don't feel bad. The Arabic in the instructions is difficult. What they want you to do is they want you to take this list of nouns here: qalamun, kitabun, sarirun, ismun, mandilun, ibnun. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the ending according to the correct possessive pronoun. So, and we're going to make it into a full sentence. So what we do here first, we're doing it first person. هذا قلمي. هذا, next one, قلمك, masculine, you. هذا قلمه. This is his pen. هذا قلمها. And so you're simply going to go down the row and you're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first one. So each one of you is going to get an entire row. So we'll start with Sister Syra. Could you do kitab?
Okay. هذا كتابي.
Good.
هذا كتابك.
Excellent.
هذا قلم. No, sorry. هذا كتابه.
Good.
And then هذا كتابها.
Fantastic. Excellent. That's exactly what we're looking for. Going right down the list I have in front of me. Semen, you're up. Go for sarir, bed.
Okay. هذا سريري. هذا سريرك.
Good.
هذا سريره. هذا سريرها.
Fantastic. Very, very good. Excellent job. Next up, Muhammad Mu'tasim. Ismun, name.
هذا اسمي. هذا اسمك. هذا اسمه. هذا اسمها.
Very, very good. Okay, next, Sister Musarrat. Mandil. Mandil.
Just a quick question. We would still pronounce this ism, so we would say hada ismi.
Oh, that's a very, very good one. It's a hamzatul wasl, so no, we would skip over it. That's
So we would say hada ismi, hada ismuk, like this.
yes, that's exactly
Okay.
right. Good catch.
Okay. So I'm doing mindil, right?
Correct.
Okay. هذا منديلي. هذا منديلك. منديلك. هذا منديله. هذا منديلها.
Very good. Okay, next up, I have oh, Sister Saha, forgive me. Last exercise, I didn't see your name, and so I skipped you. I'm sorry about that. So let's do Ibnun.
So هذا ابني.
Good. Now,
هذا
off of Sister Musarrat's point, because this is a hamzatul wasl, we're going to now not pronounce.
هذا ابني.
Yeah, هذا ابني. Exactly.
هذا ابني.
Mhm.
هذا ابنك.
Good.
هذا ابنه. هذا ابنها.
Fantastic. Great job. Especially like the qalqala on the back. Good job. Now let's go with Sister Arum, and I'm going to point out here, I don't want to see anybody fall into a trap, but this is a trap. Sayyaratun is not masculine, it's feminine. So it's not going to use hada, it's going to use hadihi. So you're going to have to now say hadihi sayyarati. Exactly. So Sister Arum, if you could do sayyaratun.
Okay. هذه سيارتي. هذه سيارتك.
Good.
هذه سيارته. هذه سيارتها. سيارتها.
Fantastic. Good job. And I'm especially pleased that they threw in this example here because we're going to see how the ta marbuta changes. Recall that the ta marbuta, okay, is halfway between a ha and halfway between a ta. It's got special rules for pronouncing and etc. When we add something onto a word that has a ta marbuta, it's simply going to become a ta. So if we're saying sayyara T. Oh, look at that. There's no more ta marbuta. It just became a normal ta. And the same the rest of them, right? Which is really, really, and this is where the doubt comes. How do I pronounce? Do I say sayaruha or tuha, right? It becomes a full-fledged ta, and so we're going to pronounce it. Very good. And let's do now, Brother Muhammad Tariq, could you do miftah?
هذا مفتاح. No.
مفتاحي.
مفتاحي.
Good.
هذا مفتاحي. هذا مفتاحك. هذا مفتاحه.
Who?
مفتاحه. Okay. هذا مفتاحه. هذا مفتاحها.
Very good. And you see now it's going to be a little bit tricky because we have two types of ha. We have ha and we have ha. So if I'm going to really nitpick on you, if I were your tajweed teacher, I would say it has to be hada miftahuhu, right? With the first one being nice and scrapey and the second one being nice and light or back set further in the throat, right? Or miftahuha. But I'll be easy on you. I'm not your tajweed teacher, at least not yet. And so just be aware that those are two different sounds, even though for English they're very, very close. Okay, and we have one last one, and since I accidentally skipped Sister Sahar in the previous exercise, I'm going to give it to her. Yad. How would we do this exercise for yad?
Is it gonna be هذا
I'm asking
يدي
hada or hadihi? What's the rule we have? I don't think you were here in the previous one.
feminine هذه
Okay, but why? What's the rule?
I don't know, sorry.
Oh, it's fine. That's fine. Does anybody remember what's the rule for body parts?
Oh yeah, yes, all the body parts are feminine. Yeah, the hands, the pairs, the one that's in the pairs.
Yes, exactly. If there's pairs, if there's two of them, it's feminine. And if there's only
Yeah.
one of them, such as your nose, your mouth, then it is masculine. Very, very good.
Mhm. So it's gonna be هذه يدي.
Very good.
Then oh, I can't see the example. هذه.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let me scroll up for you.
Okay. So then هذه يدك.
Yes, good.
Okay. هذه يده.
Okay.
And هذه يدها.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm blocking everything for you. Yes. Yaduha, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, very good. Now I'm going to pose one or two questions to the group. Okay. How do we know what's the small vowel on top of the dal? Right? Like here, let's take the first example. Well, we have to put it for my hand, okay? Is it going to be yadi or is it going to be yaday? And similar over here, let's say, is it going to be yadahu or yaduhu? How do we know and how do we tell?
Last time you said something about Arabic and making it easy and not having like really opposite sounds consecutively.
That's true. Yes.
So the yaday, I think it would be the lean, like it would be yaday, like with the fatha.
Okay.
I'm just guessing you.
That's fine. That's good. You know, that rule is so interesting and so kind of delightful in some sort of way that it really sticks in the mind, right? It sticks in the mind so much that it takes us away or unmoors us from our default, which is that the ending of a vowel, or excuse me, the ending of an ism, a noun, is dhamma, unless we have something in the sentence to alter it. So if we have, what's our sentence here? هذا قلمي. The sentence is a jumla ismiya. هذا is mubtada, qalami is khabar. Both of them are marfu'. Okay, so the default is going to be dhamma. The default is going to be dhamma, unless there's something either grammatical, such as a preposition, or phonetic, such as that exception rule that I taught you, that's going to change it from there. So that at least will tell us that everything else after the first example will be with a dhamma. Okay, it's yaduka instead of not yaduka, or not yadaka, excuse me, with a fatha. Yaduka, yaduhu, yaduha. All right? Because it's a jumla ismiya, and this is khabar, and khabar is marfu'. All right? Does that make sense? Now we come to this example. How do we make it for the ya? Okay. What is easier phonetically is to make it a fatha so that there's a diphthong here, yaday, or to just make the dal have a kasra, which is the exact same sound as the ya. The second one is easier. And so we pronounce it yadi, yadi. Then the dal has a kasra. Okay. There's also a second reason why it's yadi, hadi, hadihi, yadi, and not hadihi, yaday. Okay, we haven't learned it yet, but in Arabic there is something of a dual number. Okay, so we have singular and plural, but the new strange thing about Arabic is that there's a third number that is dual. Okay, the dual is made in this way if it's marfu', and don't worry about this if you're not interested. We'll get to it much later. Yadan. Okay, and if it were mansub or majroor, it would be yadain. Okay. You're saying, okay, Imam, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Well, if we go further and we make yadain mudaf and we make it possessed by something else, such as we want to say my two hands, then we lop off the noon and it becomes yaday. With a fatha. Yes. And so in Arabic, every single thing in Arabic eliminates ambiguity. Okay. So even the crazy rules like mamnu' min as-sarf, what can have a tanween and what can't have a tanween, it all has to do with avoiding ambiguity. And so if it weren't enough reason to make hadihi yadi due to the fact that kasra is closer to ya, then the fact that yaday actually means my two hands is even further reason that it would never be fatah. Hadihi yadi, meaning this is my hand, right? And hadihi yaday, now you've learned a little something advanced. This is my two hands, or these are my two hands. And everything else will be dhamma. Yaduka, yaduhu, yaduha. Because there's nothing phonetic in there to worry about. There's nothing grammatical to worry about. It's all the default, right? So this is a really good lesson in Arabic grammar, and it carries over to fiqh as well. We always have default rules, and then we have exceptions. And sometimes, and I know this better than anybody for someone who studied formally, sometimes it's easier to remember the rules governing the exceptions than it is to remember the default, right? But we have to make sure that we stick to the default and understand when we resort to exceptions.
Can I ask you a question?
Please, of course.
Okay, so in the dual, you said that you do hazaf of the noon, right? You cut the noon.
Yes. If it's mudaf.
So that leaves the ya, which belongs to the two hands. Like for example, if you were saying his two hands, you know, Allah's two hands, subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you would say bayna yadayhi, right?
Yes, correct.
But when you say me, mine, then
two yas, is that what you're saying? We have two yas.
well, you're not actually adding the ya. Basically, what I mean to say is then yaday already means two hands, but yaday also means my two hands.
Very good.
That's my question.
Excellent catch. Excellent catch. So there are two yas. And how would two yas be written? With a shadda.
With a shadda?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So well, without the shadda, what you wrote there was just two hands. Or yeah, without the shadda, it was just two hands. But when you added the shadda, then it became my two hands.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch. MashaAllah. Eye for detail. Okay. Excellent. That was a nice little tangent. Anyone have any questions about that? If that's over your head, don't worry. We're gonna get into it later. Honestly, the dual is useful for understanding the Quran. You should know obviously that it exists and how it works. But modern spoken Arabic has largely abandoned the dual because it's a fairly unique feature as far as languages go. Most languages don't have a dual form. They have a singular and they have a plural. So most modern spoken Arabic does not really use the dual so much. But it's important to be aware that it exists, and we'll in time we'll learn the rules for that. But the big takeaway is that don't lose sight of the fact that we're still within Jumla Ismiya, and Jumla Ismiya has two parts, Mubtada, Khabar, and both of those parts are marfu'. Both of those parts are in the nominative case. The nominative case is demonstrated by a dhamma in this case, in this particular example. And that's the rule unless there's something evidence in the sentence to change that rule. Now they're going to take us into the other way of talking about possession. Recall that, we were talking about, well, they are going to tell us right here a little bit later. نقول عندي كتاب ونقول لي أخ. So there's which word, Sister Saha?
Oh, like بيدي. It's in split صاد.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah, when you can, if you're able to, give us the ayah just for reference so we can have that on record for the folks following along at home. Now we're going to talk about li and inda, and we talked about how the lam, these are two different ways of talking about possession. So using the lam and mulkiya and using inda are two different ways of talking about possession. In general, we use inda for objects, book, pen, car. And lam and mulkiya, we tend to, and these are not absolute rules, but they are general rules. We use them for human beings, right? I have a brother, I have a sister, I have a mother, I have a father, etc. The secondary difference is that we use lam for things that are possession, whether they're on our person or not. And we use inda for things that are not just our possession, but things that are on our person, which was the significance of the dialogue in the beginning of this lesson when he wanted to know whether Muhammad had a car with him, right? He wasn't asking him if he owned a car because that wouldn't help him. He was looking for a ride home, right? And so if you're looking for a ride home, you don't really care if the person owns a car. You care if the person has that car with them, right? So which is why he said عند عندك سيارة. I think he said سيارة. Yeah, see. So they reiterate this fact. They say down here, نقول عندي كتاب. I have a book. ونقول لي أخ. And we say, I have a brother. We would not say عندي أخ. Okay. And we usually would not say li kitabun. So there are situations where you could say that. Here, no. We're inda for objects, lam for people. And we have a nice little exercise right here. Li ukhtun wahidatun. This is straight from the dialogue, right? Ukht is a sister, and so wahida has to be feminine. Wahidatun with a ta marbuta. Laka akhun. Do you have a brother? Same exact formula or equation as our questions with inda. And look, the response is exactly the same. It's a negative response, and so it's going to first of all address the yes or no component of the question, la. Then it's going to have a sentence that's a negation, ma li akhun. And so we don't, sorry, excuse me, it's not conjugation, but we add a possessive pronoun to lam, just as we did to inda. Li, laka or laki, lahu, and laha. Ukhti, my sister, laha tiflun saghirun. Tifl is a child. Saghir, we know, is a small child. So this would mean that my sister, she has, laha, right? Tiflun saghirun. And finally, zamili, my colleague or my classmate, lahu, he has, akhun wa ukhtun, a brother and a sister. But we're out of time for now, so I think we'll pick up there and we will read that through together next time, inshallah. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we've covered today or previously? So the ayah is 70.
Excuse me. I think who was for masculine and ha for feminine, right?
Lahu.
Yes,
So lahu will
that's
be
correct.
masculine. Okay.
Lahu is for masculine and laha is for feminine. Sorry, maybe I misspoke.
So I have a question for number 3. Ukhti laha. So laha, because the subject is the child. So
Oh,
laha
good, good,
is
good.
referring to, right?
Fantastic question. This is a great question. The subject is not the child. The subject is the
The
sister.
sister.
Ah.
Okay.
It's her child, right? This is the English equivalent of her,
Mm,
right? So
her child. Okay.
exactly. So that's where that comes in. The tiflun saghirun here is masculine, 100% correct. But this is the khabar. This is the
The khabar. Okay.
information that we're giving about the subject, which is my sister.
Sister. I
Fantastic.
thought we are talking about, we're giving the khabar about the boy, but okay, never mind. Okay. That's okay. I understood that. Yeah.
Well, this is very good. This is very good. So the differentiating between the two is going to require us to be able to draw that line. Where does the mubtada start and where does the khabar begin? Right? So ukhti laha tiflun saghirun. So we see that there's a switch here. Ukhti laha tiflun saghirun. This is the information about the subject, which is ukhti.
Ukhti.
But we'll get into
So-
that. We'll review.
Since we are talking about, if you can explain number 4 also in that, in that light, zamili lahu.
Yes. So zamil would be the masculine form of colleague or classmate, right?
Okay.
So he's the subject. Since we're
Lahu.
talking about him, we're going to talk about what he possesses. He has both a brother masculine and a sister feminine. This is the khabar, right? And the mubtada is here. So it's the same exact thing, but reversed. One thing
Thank
that's
you.
also tricky about this is, again, word order, right? So the word order violates our sense of English syntax, because in English you would say, my brother has a sister, right? So this is sort of what's going on. Like my colleague, we would say this is has, okay? A brother and a sister. So we're really talking about my colleague or my classmate. We're not really talking about the brother or the sister. That's a very good question. I'll review that answer again tomorrow when we do this, or excuse me, not tomorrow, but next class, because that's a very crucial point. Anyone else? Okay, everyone's doing fantastic. Excellent effort. Great participation. Thank you all very much. And I will see you, inshallah ta'ala, Wednesday. Okay, there we go. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.